Romero Chavez, sorry, with my donut in my mouth.
Robin Campbell getting ready to eat a donut.
And our backbone,
Amy Davis.
thank you. And we have players in the audience, staff, I'd like to introduce them as well. Jennifer?
Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. Karen Lees, Finance, Public Works. Maria Ponte, HR.
Thank you. And
Commissioner Gary Edwards.
so the first thing on the agenda is COVID-19 water and sewer utility customer emergency financial relief.
Yeah, Commissioners, you reviewed this item this past Tuesday, and this is an attempt to provide some relief to the ratepayers of the water and sewer accounts that we have in Grand Mountain, Boston Harbor, Townshend, and Olympic View. And for your consideration, take a formal action, because as soon as you take this action, as soon as we can start implementing those relief measures to those tax ratepayers.
Okay. There's our motion.
Yes. Just looking at the timeline there. I move to approve an ordinance providing emergency financial relief for water and sewer customers served by Grand Mound, Boston Harbor, Tamishan, and Olympic View water and sewer utilities.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve an ordinance providing emergency financial relief for water and sewer customers. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 2, Romero?
Yeah, the next item for your consideration, Commissioners, is the, Rob and I give you a heads up this past Tuesday, the Nisqually Tribe is in need to extend a fiber optic line using county's right-of-way to support the emergency operations center. This is an MOU for your consideration to consider approving. Also, I believe Commissioner Hutchins was asking where this is going to be located. I have attached a map related to that, because there is a portion of the reservation road that is under county's right of way. The tribe would like to utilize to put this line in. Certainly, there is I don't want to come across and like to rush the board in making a decision, but there is a sense of urgency by the Nisqually Tribe to begin this work as soon as feasible. So this MOU allows them to use the county's right-of-way, and also this MOU also makes a commitment that the Nisqually Tribe will begin the franchise utility process down the road. It's pretty simple. It's just authorizing for them to do this work, and I will ask you to consider this approval.
So, I'm thinking be a motion and a second and then discussing it, rather than just discuss it and then do the same thing again. So is there a motion and then for discussion? Not approving, just moving it so we can get to the point to discuss.
And staff is here to answer it.
Okay. So let's start with a motion and a second, and then we open it up for discussion, and we say yay or nay.
Okay, then I'll make the motion to approve a memorandum of understanding with the Nisqually Tribe for the emergency installation of a fiber optic line within the county's rights of way.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve an MOU with the Nisqually Tribe for emergency installation of fiber optic line in the county's rights of way. Any discussion? Do you have questions or discussion? We all do, I guess? Go ahead, Ty.
I just guess want to know kind of what's the downside. Is there any argument that anybody's making that we shouldn't move forward with this? And that's a question for Jennifer.
Personally,
I see your head shaking, which is
I don't see any
good enough for me.
negative argument. I think this is a way as to how we can support the Nisqually Tribe's needs in terms of the emergency operations center. There is not a downside of this, and there's not a financial impact to the county as
That's where I
well.
was going, nothing financial. Go ahead, Gary.
Is there an end date that is associated with this memorandum?
The end date is as soon as, because it's very prescriptive, it's just related to the installation of this fiber optic
Olivia
line.
Altman has left the conference.
So in a way, it's not an end date, but it's a project related.
And is there any liability associated with whomever is doing the contract? Is the tribe doing it? Is a private contractor doing it? There's mistakes maiden flagging and there's a head-on collision or something like that. I'm just trying to think of the worst case. I'm very much in favor of doing this. I wanna make sure that we have the county taxpayers covered through a liability situation.
So they certainly, they will have to absorb the liability, whatever they do.
No, I don't wanna hear that because of this whole business that we had a death in the jail out there. And that went through quite a problem until they accepted that. So, we have a sovereignty issue here. I'm 100% for helping them, but I'm worried that we cover all our bases as we grant these things.
The sovereignty issue applies when it's within the tribal lands. This is within the county's right of way. And any construction activities they need to provide, they have to meet the requirements of the county.
I know, that's my fear. I just wanna make sure it's covered.
Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. Craig, I'm going to attempt to explain the work and then please feel free to jump in.
Okay, I'm here.
Thank you. The right-of-way is 80 feet there. For Reservation Road, the work that's going to be done, I believe the fiber optic that they're laying is going to be 5 feet from that edge, so 35 feet. Is that correct, Craig?
Yes, they'll be outside of the travel lanes.
So it is on the outside of that right-of-way.
I'm just wondering, I just asked the question to make sure that
That's all good questions, yeah.
the county's covered. And that's my concern.
Yeah, yeah, you need to be.
I just didn't see anything about liability here.
This has nothing to do with franchise agreements?
That is a follow-up. My understanding, Craig, is this is a memorandum of understanding to enter into a franchise agreement, but to allow them to move forward with the installation.
That's it, you're
because-
moving in good faith to execute a franchise,
Correct.
and that's with us, or that's with, who's that?
Correct.
The county.
The county, okay.
And as part of this process, they'll still be required to get a permit through the Thurston County, which may address some of Commissioner Edwards' concerns. They still will have to go through the county permitting process in order to do the construction within the right-of-way.
So we have our fingerprint on it all the way through.
So what, they have to get a gopher inspection and the whole ball of wax? Is that what you're saying?
They'll have to go through the permitting process. I don't know what all is
Good
involved
answer.
in the permit process.
It most likely will be under the current roadway, so it will not be exposed to.
Well, I don't know as I agree with that because it's outside the regular roadway. I want to make sure that the county is covered from a liability perspective. That's my only concern. I don't see anything about it in this agreement.
Fair enough. If you like, we can pull this item until you feel comfortable to add any type of language you would like to see.
Is there, I mean, sometimes we have an attorney's signature that they've signed off on the draft. I don't see that on this draft. Has there been review by?
Craig can
Yes.
speak to that.
There
Craig,
has been?
can you speak to that,
Yes.
please?
I think Karen has reviewed this MOU, right, Craig?
Correct. It was drafted by Karen and Grace.
Right.
What makes this an emergency?
Apparently they need to connect their emergency center.
With their community center.
Right. To be able to communicate adequately during this time.
I'm all in favor of them doing this, but I just don't see everything covered to the county's benefit. And when you refer to, doesn't look like it'll mix things up because it'll be in the right of way, we've been fighting that gopher issue over there at Stillicum and Marvin for like 4 years. We even bought property to mitigate. We still haven't got it done. And the gopher ends up being more important than the kids. So I don't necessarily accept that there isn't any exposure. I believe there is exposure all the way around if they're gonna go with the rules. I would just ask that maybe we take a couple of days, a week, I don't know what to tell you, but I do think we ought to have some coverage from a liability perspective. If a contractor does this job, they may very well carry their own, and then we're covered. I don't know who's doing the job, doesn't talk about that. So there's just that issue that bothers me. I wanna help, but I'd like to make sure we're covered.
Craig, do you have anything to add?
The tribe have contracted with a group to do the design on this. I don't know who's doing the construction. I believe they're bringing in a contractor to do the construction, but I can't say for sure.
I'm all for moving ahead with this, but I'm also concerned, I just want to be sure that the county is not liable in any way, shape, or form. I understand that the county will have a fingerprint on almost every phase, at least for the permitting of it. And if I'm told it will have to be reviewed, I don't care if it's a gopher review or whatever permitting review there is, as long as the county is safe and covered, I'm okay with it. And under the circumstances, if they're trying to hook up their EOC and connect it with other organizations and buildings and entities within the tribe, I don't want to hold that up for them. If there's no cost to the city, or the county rather, I just want to be sure that we're covered liability-wise, but I don't want to hold it up.
Is there any reason that we couldn't just have a little liability sentence wrote in there?
Could we just, I mean, I feel like if we had one of the attorneys that put this together,
Two attorneys. It
Yeah,
was
either
Karen
one.
and Grace.
I'm sure if either one could probably address whether that language needs to be in here or not, or if it does, how simple it could be.
We can explore that, but based on past experiences, when we add the whole harmless clause, then because the whole harmless clause is intended to see where are you going to litigate if everything was wrong.
Yeah, that's my concern.
And that becomes the sovereignty issue, because in
Yes,
the
it
past, they at least from Chehalis tribe, they would like to litigate that in the tribal courts. We said no. And even on the Eagle One agreements, we agree that any matters related to that will be litigated in federal court,
Why couldn't there just be a sentence in here that says that?
because we have not negotiated that with any squally.
So
Well,
anything we add has to go back to the squally for approval.
they'll get it back to us quick.
So we can do whatever you think is appropriate. This is just an item that we just do our due diligence to bring in front of you, but if you don't feel comfortable, it's fine. We can go back and do whatever you think is.
I am comfortable because it's been reviewed by two of our attorneys. I'm comfortable with it, knowing full well that they're gonna watch out for the well-being of the county. And I don't wanna hold a squally up from their emergency services operations center in getting fiber optics in. So if the majority of the board wants to put it off, for whatever reasons, now we're talking about it's not an emergency. I mean, it is to them, but not to us apparently. I just want them to know why it's being held up, why it's gonna take longer than getting it done.
And from a fiber optics perspective, if I was in their situation right now and we needed this coverage, I'd roll a fiber optics line out and just put it there. We're only talking about a mile. And let them put it out along the road and get it hooked up. Digging the ditch and then closing it is not much of a deal. But the mere fact of what you bring up, it could be a sentence in there, any litigation will require that hearing in front of the Superior Court or something.
But that's a stumbling block. That's why here.
Why is it a stumbling block? I don't
Not
get
to
it.
me, but it is to the tribe.
Why?
That aspect, again, we have not gotten into negotiating that aspect within the Squaw tribe. We have gotten to the point of negotiating that type of litigation with the Chehalis tribe.
Well, I'm not anticipating a problem. I just think we ought to write that in, send it out to them, they'll sign it, get it back to us.
They will?
We've only had this for a week.
Yeah, whatever you like to do. Just give us
That's
direction.
what I would be in favor of.
Okay, just give us direction.
So it's been, do you have any further?
I mean, what you're talking about is a forum selection clause, which is different than a hold harmless clause, but I would just like to be able to ask one of the attorneys if we need that, because they may be able to say in two sentences something that would make me feel very comfortable moving forward without any change. But I don't have the answer to the commissioner's question, so I'd like to hear the answer from one of the attorneys. And maybe the answer is, we don't know the answer to that, but I'd like to at least have the chance to ask that question, whether it's in the next hour and a half or in the next week or whatever is
Well,
feasible.
yeah.
I'm here every day, so
And I'll make myself available every day, 24 hours a day.
I don't wanna hold it
I
up.
think staff has heard some of the board's concerns and we'll work with our attorneys to try to address your concerns.
Possibly even, I'm ready to vote to move this on. There's a motion on the floor. If the attorneys can, we don't speak for them, of course, able to get back to us before the end of the day, perhaps, can we still do it? In some type of a session?
Well, yeah, you can, but I cannot commit whether the attorneys can
Right, I know.
answer those questions today.
Can Jennifer, can one of your staff check with the attorney, see if they're available to conference call within the next 45 minutes?
Yeah, Craig, are you hearing the commissioners?
Yep, I heard, I can certainly give Karen a call.
Thank you.
See if we can add indemnification, hold harmless language, or even if it's necessary, and see what she has to
Yeah,
say.
I think it's twofold. I think the first is, was it considered an explanation from them? And then the second would be the potential of adding.
I guess,
Maybe if you, sorry.
I would like to add one other thing to that. I don't know why we couldn't have a clause in there that just says the contractor shall carry adequate insurance coverage to indemnify the county, that's all. Something
Could we
simple.
just have Karen
Yeah,
or Grace
that's what I
call?
Yeah, that's all I
Yeah.
wanna hear.
Craig, can you see if Karen's available to call in?
That way they can hire a contractor, he can put us against his
Certainly, I will put her
insurance.
on mute and call from my personal cell phone and see if I can get a hold of her.
Okay, thank you.
Table that.
Thank you, so, yeah, so there's been a motion and
Let's
it's been
just table
seconded.
I'm gonna,
So we did the discussion, now we go back and an amendment, would be an amendment to table the motion.
okay.
A motion to table the motion.
I would make a motion to table this until we hear back from council about the liability issue.
So it's been moved and seconded to table this motion until we hear back from council. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries to table it. Got it. Number 3, when you're ready.
No, that's gonna be good.
Oh.
You ready for another donut?
Haven't had one. I don't need to get jacked up anymore. For sure. Okay, federal employment paid sick leave policy.
Yeah, and Avala's program are yet to come to the table. And this is related to, you know, the conditions in which we're currently operating. Related how we compensate county employees. Right now, we have, obviously for those who can come to work, will come to work. For those who can't, we made just about every single effort to telecommute. This morning, Superior Court has achieved that everybody's either here or telecommuting, so nobody's in administrative leave. So the model that we have right now is come to work, you're considered essential part of the business. If you cannot come to work, then telecommuting will be accessible to you. We have a good program going. And for those individuals, they cannot come to work and they cannot telecommute or they cannot be reassigned to those other duties. Right now, they are in paid administrative leave at home and they need to be available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, just in case the county need them to come back and provide some functions. That's the model that we have right now. And that model ends April 6th, next Monday, and that was really going lockstep to what the governor put that umbrella. Let me pause and a little bit in terms of what that umbrella really does. On the emergency declaration, we have a legal opinion. Under the emergency declaration, we are okay to pay administrative leave for those individuals that cannot perform the work. Absent an emergency umbrella, then it would be very difficult for us to pay employees paid administrative leave if they don't perform their work, because that can be considered as a gift in the public funds. So just want to make sure that is addressed. So now bringing in now the new law, which is the federal emergency paid sick leave policy that Congress passed last week, and that is included in the top $2.2 trillion package. everything is evolving, and it seems like everything changes, even by the hour. Early in the week, we believe that it was only limited, and I explained that to you on my Tuesday morning when I raised this issue, that it was only very limited individuals who can take advantage of this, meaning whether they're going to be under a federal declaration and under, prescribed by the health provider to be quarantined or isolated. They can access it 10 days, up to 80 hours with a maximum of compensation. On Tuesday, when I present this to you, the stay-at-home order issued by the governor was not included as part of this option for the county. So that put us in a very difficult situation. Yesterday afternoon, we had a different legal review at the national level, and the stay-at-home orders do apply for us to get access to the emergency paid administrator. Okay, so that has changed from last Tuesday. So administrative leave, the federal sick leave available to us, and again with the limitations that I highlighted to you. Now I'd like to give you two paths as to how we can implement this. Let's assume the governor does not extend the stay-at-home order. And let's assume that it elapses April 6th, Monday, April 6th, 2020. That's scenario number one, right? At that point, it will be very limited as to what individuals can access the the federal medical sick leave. Absent that declaration, the county will not be able to offer paid administrative leave to employees. And at that point, if the order does not extend it, employees will be required to come back to work. And that is the rules of engagement, as I know. It is unlikely, but that's the scenario number one. For those employees who feel that perhaps don't feel safe or they would like to come to work under scenario number one, then they will be required to use their own personal leave if they want to remain home. Okay, that's scenario number one. In the event the governor doesn't issue a stay-at-home order.
I gotta interrupt here just for a second. I thought if they did use their own personal leave though, under this federal declaration, they are gonna have access to a certain amount of coverage for a period of time, and I think it's up to $10,000.
Yeah, that's the limitations.
Two-thirds pay and
It's
stuff
10
like that.
days, 10 days, 80 hours, up to
So
10,000.
they don't have to use up everything they've got, I don't think, to get it. And won't we have adequate time? I mean, I don't like to do anything on assumptions myself, because I think the governor probably is gonna continue this, I think.
I'm just providing you
Yeah,
So let's hear the second path.
scenarios. I'm not asking you to make a decision.
So, I mean, is there a problem that we just couldn't do this? I'd come in
He
on
has another-
Sunday night,
He has
I
another
don't
path,
care.
he's giving us
Okay.
path 1 and 2, I wanna hear both paths.
Allow me
discuss it.
to provide you the two paths, Commissioner.
Okay.
But if you like anything else for me to present something different, please let me
Oh,
know.
No, go
The
ahead.
last thing that I wanna do is have a frustrated commissioner.
Well, you do, I wanna hear the second path.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, but just to follow up on Commissioner Edwards' scenario, the federal leave is still limited to those very specific categories. So we'd still have a lot of people,
They will
if the
not
governor doesn't extend the order, we'd still have a lot of people
Who may
who might not wanna
be able to access that.
come and not be able to access that. So that's a gap that we
Yeah.
have to acknowledge.
And that is the gap in the scenario number one.
Which is unlikely, but it's a scenario.
Yeah.
Okay. Path number 2.
So scenario number two, if please give me the opportunity to explain that. Scenario number two is the governor will extend this stay-at-home order. Then will implement a plan in which the same thing. Essential businesses will have to report to work. Will encourage just about everyone who can telecommute to continue to telecommute. And then the third step, as opposed to, we will not be offering paid administrative leave, then we will access the federal emergency sick leave for 10 days, up to 80 hours with a limitation of 10,000. So that is the scenario number 2. And that will be my suggestion when we hear the governor, if it gets to the point of extending the stay-at-home order. And it's the same order,
Is now joining the conference.
is the same model that we have right now, except it will not be paying paid administrative leave with the county sources. Would maximize the refund from the federal government for the next 10 days, up to 80 hours with a maximum of 10,000.
For
That is
those
the-
categories.
And that will apply for everything. So the coverage of this is really related to an emergency order, in which because it's mandated by the governor, the stay-at-home order, so it prevents everybody to be able to come to work.
Okay, so if the governor, under this scenario, Romero, if the governor extends the shelter at home, or safe home, and employees were gonna access the federal dollars, they're not losing any benefit, they're not losing any pay, they're not having to take sick time, comp time, annual leave, vacation. How soon do we get that money from the government under this emergency situation?
And that is the a few $1,000 question.
Oh,
And at this point, if we go through the process of having employees or the county to be reimbursed under the federal emergency paid sick leave, it will be a just matter of employees to add, to put a different code as to
the
when they
timesheet.
log into the timesheets.
okay.
But really, the question is out there, when we're gonna start receiving the reimbursement by the federal government, because it's not out.
Okay.
Or how the
Or how.
reimbursement comes.
So, but at
So-
least what we'd like to do is to start making sure that we start capturing all that when the time is ready. We just send the bill to the federal government so we can get that back.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit the pause button, because we have Karen on the phone, do we, the attorney?
I don't know.
Yes, I heard her.
She joined the conversation.
Karen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, we're all healthy, thanks, Karen. I don't wanna hold you up, so let's get to the meat of this. Do you understand what we're talking about, the issue?
Karen,
I think so. So Craig, just called me and filled me in just a little bit that you were inquiring about potentially adding indemnification language into the proposed agreement that would say that we would negotiate a franchise agreement later.
that was a question for you.
I didn't
I
get
know,
all
Okay.
I'm trying, we learned
Clarify
that.
your concern, Commissioner, for her.
Yeah, thank you, tell her, Gary?
She wants to hear the concern, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
My concern is that there's an issue involving sovereignty if anything goes haywire. That's all I'm concerned about. They're out there working in the roadway, we have a head-on collision. It's the fault of whomever is putting this together. Where does the liability lie? Are we assuming that liability by making this agreement without any indemnification verbiage in there to cover the county? I just don't want the county on the hook if something bad happens. And I'm asking, could we put a sentence in there that either indemnifies or that the contractor utilized to do this project would carry adequate insurance? I don't know
Sure.
what that
So
would
there
be.
is, in the permit itself, which was sort of incorporated by reference into any of this, there is some indemnification language in there that the permittee is taking on. But I do think it's a good issue to raise, and it's something absolutely that we can modify the agreement to make that more explicit and address a waiver.
So does that mean we have to delay this issue until you get that put together? Or is there something you can just write into this agreement that says?
It wouldn't be it would not be a difficult amendment to make to that agreement. So that's something absolutely I can do in the next few hours.
But with that,
Good.
your other concern was, I think, whether it would be hurt any contest regarding this liability issue that would be heard in tribal court rather than superior court in the county. Is that one of your concerns also?
That is one of the concerns. In the past, that issue has come up on other issues. So I just want to make sure that it's covered so that the county taxpayers don't incur a liability issue should something happen, something unforeseen.
Sure. And so we'll work on addressing those concerns, and I don't believe, so we'll work on addressing that, and then I think work on speaking with the tribe to see if this will suit their purposes as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. I guess we'll hear back from you when you get the answer, or Romero will.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I'm gonna sign off the call, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Very slowly.
Has left the conference.
so we're back to, back where we were with phase 1, phase 2, or plan 1, plan 2.
So allow me to repeat that again because it seems to be a little complicated and I understand. I understand it can be complicated, not just, I mean, it takes just about every day just to understand the nuances of this issue.
And where we left off was, we don't have any idea when reimbursement would come in, but it would be a reimbursement we'd have to put out.
Well, that's the assurance the federal government has,
Okay.
not just to us, but to all jurisdictions.
Go ahead.
Tuesday, I think it was, when you kind of overviewed this, there were like different categories of 2/3 for certain, I mean, so are we able to capture all of those categories of potential reimbursement, or are we just looking at that? I mean,
So the overreaching, it was two scenarios, you're right, is the 10 days, 80 hours with a maximum. Based on the new assessment, the stay-at-home order will cover all those employees who cannot perform their work. Right? So that's done. The 2/3, it is an additional benefit to a specific set of individuals. There's a healthcare, you have those.
Yeah. So one category is an employee caring for an individual subject to an order described involving self-quarantine or isolation. And the second one is an employee caring for their child whose school or place of care is closed due to COVID. Those are the reduced, the 2/3, but we can allow a supplement if they have leave banked. But we can't, we wouldn't seek reimbursement for anything above, we wouldn't be entitled for anything above the 2/3. It's capped at reimbursement at 2/3.
right, I'm just saying, we're able to code this in a way that we
Yes,
can go after all of these different
Yes.
categories.
Absolutely. but
Whether it's
then
2/3 or.
Payroll has
on the
the
2/3,
closed
there's
off.
only a few employees that might qualify for that.
Okay, that's all I was asking.
So on the first tier, yes, based on the latest legal opinion, everybody will be covered who cannot perform the work.
Did you get what you needed?
I think so.
Go ahead, Gary.
I believe that the unknown is when we would get reimbursement from the federal government. We just don't know that answer. But I feel that we do have resources available that we can borrow from, whether it's the road fund or the REIT fund or whatever, to cover it until we get that kind of stuff in. I'm not looking at raiding the general fund every time we turn around. And we might have to make exceptions during that process. And again, to keep the community whole, I think we can make those emergent decisions as need be.
Yeah, and you may remember the split between employees who are paid by the general fund and also the other funds. So it will be the same. So those individual funds who pay for those employees' time will bridge over until we can get the reimbursement.
There
So
you go.
the bridge over will not be solely on the backs of the general fund.
Did we still have that unemployment fund that we used to bail out an issue a couple of years ago?
We need to leave that fund alone until we find out if
Is it
we're
scanned
gonna
over?
do layoffs.
But we can borrow money from other funds.
But yes, we absolutely can, we can do a loan from, and I would recommend the solid waste fund. But we can do a loan from one of our fatter funds into the general fund, if that's the fund we're gonna use. But as Ramiro said, at this time, we have made the assumption that we can pay this leave out of restricted funds, and that's something I've asked for clarification on. But that is the assumption we're making, and we're not hitting the general fund to the extent we can. As far as reimbursement goes, reimbursement, I'll tell you right now, is gonna be a long time coming, especially if it's from FEMA. And when I say a long time, I mean up to 5 or 6 years they can take to approve claims and pay. So we need to be ready to float.
And the interest rate is tremendous, it's a great interest rate if we need to, so what the heck,
Yep.
let's do it.
There you go.
One additional piece of information related to this. If the governor extends the stay-at-home order for 2 weeks, the employees will be absolutely covered on that scenario using the federal emergency sick leave. The question is going to be what happens if the governor extends that beyond an additional 2 weeks. So at this point, I'm not asking for you to take an action beyond the first 2 weeks, If it's more than 2 weeks, then we'll have the opportunity to bring different scenarios again for you to consider if the order goes beyond the 2 weeks. But at this point if extension for 2 weeks, we're covered. If extension of the stay-at-home order is beyond 2 weeks, then we'll be covered by the federal government for 2 weeks. And then I will engage the board on a set of conversations after that.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering if the governor extends the order, what is the concern at that point? What is the scenario that we're worried about?
Cash.
Okay, cash, but, well, okay.
And we're gonna start having, because we already have employees under admin leave, so we'll start gathering information as to how much is representing that to the county.
We don't have numbers yet. That's part of what I was saying earlier. We'll start getting information after payroll closes. So next week, we'll start being able to look at how many employees, what classes they're in, how much the pay is, all of that. We don't have it yet.
Maria, aside from buzzkill, give us some good news.
Well, I thought the good news was that the stay-at-home order now counts for us to be able to place employees on that and seek reimbursement. I thought that was good news.
That's great news.
Yeah.
That's great news, thank you.
Money will eventually
5 years down the road,
5 years later is
Well,
better than
hopefully it
never.
won't be that
after they
long, but
retire.
FEMA routinely takes a year. That
Yeah.
it's not at all uncommon to take a year, and in some cases, a lot longer.
And that will be the difficult part because we're gonna be able to bridge over until we can get reimbursement by the federal government.
Cash.
And at this point, it is cash, it's really cash.
Based on declining revenue?
Yeah.
Whew.
The FOA just released a new white paper called Cash is King.
Anything further? Yeah, since you're here, anything further on this topic?
So you will see that depending on the governor's order, most likely, I think he's gonna have a conference, news conference today, maybe he will announce that today. Chances are he will. And at that point, we'll follow up with an email to all county employees, similar to what I sent 2 weeks ago, and specifying how the new model is gonna work for the next 2 weeks. Not only that, after that period, the board will have to make different decisions.
And you laid out path 1 and path 2 very well, thank you. It's understandable. I think path 1 is just gonna be negated. Sounds like it. Okay, thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Jennifer. Does that mean you're leaving? Okay.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Karen.
Your pocketbook is in jeopardy if you leave, you know.
It's in jeopardy if I stay.
All right, number 4, juvenile correction officer's request.
You received an email from Mike Finn, asking for you to consider a 5% hazard pay to juvenile correction officers. And I believe you have read that email.
How many juvie corrections do we have? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, how many do we have? No idea.
Well, we need to know something, I would think.
Well, yeah, how many and what would that 5% cost? What's it equate to in dollars? Because it's certainly when we did this the other day for sheriff deputies.
You
and
didn't ask how
corrections.
many.
No, but I have it in my head, but I don't have any idea how
Yeah,
many
I don't know
corrections
about
we have in
juvenile
juvie.
either. I'm inclined to give them.
But it was my
this-
intent to do that for the
Yeah.
corrections.
Yep.
That are in close proximity to the
Yep.
10 kids we have or 8 kids. out
I'm
there.
good with it. I don't think it's very many officers, but I think they've only got about 10 people in custody over there.
And as I said last week, or whatever day it was, I don't remember anymore. Are we in March or in April?
April.
So last week was that these are the men and women that are they're not, I'm not saying they're the first line of defense. They're not in the first line of defense. They're in the battlefield. And they don't have the options always of the space. They're practicing space distancing, social space or social distancing, I'm sure, but they don't always have that option. It's different than someone handling paperwork and such that can respond rather than having to react. So my intention was to include them. I was neglectful in forgetting to include them in that decision, but.
I'm strongly continue to encourage the board to be cognizant of your decisions that impacts the budget.
Now this goes to the greater question, I'll get right to you. This goes to the greater question of the 5% sunsetting on Monday for corrections and sheriff deputies. And do we know what that's going to cost, or we can project that out, I would imagine.
You requested that 20 minutes ago.
Did I?
We'll get
That today?
We'll get that information as soon as we can.
Ty, everything?
I mean, you guys put me in a tough position. I absolutely agree with Mike Fenton that based on the rationale that the majority of the board passed, they should have been included.
Yeah.
But I opposed it altogether, so I don't know what to do at this point.
Okay, I'd make a suggestion. I would include them in our original declaration of 5% and retroactively till the day that we did it,
Which was Monday?
whatever day we did it.
I have that.
I think it was Monday, I think is when it started.
I think those officers
Last
should
Wednesday.
be treated the same as the rest of the corrections officers in the county system. It just happens to be they're dealing with juveniles. They're dealing with the same problem.
And the virus doesn't discriminate on age.
Right. I don't think there's very many in
It
there, but
started on March 25th
25th.
and ends April 6th.
So I'm with that, with retro, to go along with their brothers and sisters, dealing with the adults. But then we'll revisit, when we get the information, what we're gonna do after Monday.
Is that,
Oh,
I like to hear.
I'll support that because they should have been included.
So, Commissioners, considering that perhaps some members of the public are joining via conference call, the thumbs up may not be something, a message they, so if you like to
Okay, thumbs
exercise
up.
the support verbally,
yes,
Yes, yes.
Yes.
There you go. You got 4 yeses, because I said one twice. So that's unanimous. To include the juvenile corrections.
there you go.
so I will respond to my pen today on those terms.
Thank you. Wow. We're doing real well time-wise. Okay, so now we're getting to commissioners' assignments to external boards and commissions. Reporting back. Who wants to start?
Well, I'll start.
Thank you.
My boards and commissions have been, any that I've met, we did it telephonically. And the only real action that we took was what we were talking about here with this new federal law. And we took that action to benefit about 70 employees over at the communication center that covers law enforcement and all the first responder activities, medical, fire, law enforcement. So we've already taken that action for that group of individuals.
Mike?
Guess I could report on the conversation that Ramiro was there about the jail. Should I report on that?
Yeah, please do.
So we had a Zoom meeting with the officials from City of Olympia, as well as the sheriff, under sheriff, Chief Toma, Ramiro, myself, just to explore whether there was interest from an Olympia side. I think the county's been consistent, and John Thunheim was on the call as well. For the city, it was Jim Cooper. Mayor Cheryl Selby was trying to get in, but was never able to technologically connect.
Yeah.
We had Jay Burney, the interim city manager. I think those two basically. So the gist of the conversation was just kind of turning over some of the ideas of what the problems might be to try to work that through. And there was a variety of different concerns. And I think what we landed on was to kind of go through a process, sort of like what the Regional Housing Council did by bringing in Mark Daly from TRPC to do sort of a visioning session, interview the stakeholders, create a checklist of what issues would need to get ironed out, and then try to create a path forward, maybe a process forward.
And we're talking about regional.
Yeah, about cooperation in the regional jail. Lacey and Tumwater were not at the table. There was a desire to have them at the table for this visioning process. So I talked to the mayor of Lacey yesterday. They are willing, they have some other ideas that they're throwing out there, that they've got balls in the air, but they are willing to be part of our process as well. So, and I sent out a communication to the mayor of Tumwater. I'm waiting to hear, he probably has responded. I haven't been able to check email today. Anyway, once I get those two pieces, then I'm gonna be sending out kind of an orientation email to the people that, and Mark, and then I talked to Mark Daly yesterday, and he is absolutely on board to help us with this process.
Good.
And kind of follow through a process the way he did with the housing issue. So that's where that stands. I'm hoping that we can move a good process forward that would yield some results for us. And I'm gonna be moving as fast as I can, because I know that it's a great time actually for Mark. A lot of things Mark does, he can't do, but there's no reason he can't call or Skype meetings with all the stakeholders and get this preparatory work done. So he's ready to move on that, and so I'll be pushing that down the train down the tracks. Yeah, Ramiro.
So just to the benefit of the viewing public, this concept of a regional jail was discussed among the board maybe 2 weeks ago. And the board tasked Commissioner Menser to take the next steps as he described. And I just want to make sure the viewing public understands that this discussion was conducted by the board, and the board asked Commissioner Menser to continue on with the conversations with the city.
And if I could just kind of outline a couple of the key issues. Like, so, for example, if we had built a courthouse at Plum and Union on where the Olympia has its jail and its court, we would have been taking their court functions into our facility, but they would have needed, that would have separated court and jail for them, and they would have needed to deal with jail. Similarly, if we take their jail function and put it on our jail, they've got a court, they've still got a municipal court that's, and probation services and all these other things that they have to deal with. So, Jay Burney kept talking about looking at like a systems-wide look, because it's not, for Olympia, the jail and the court right now are kind of connected pieces. And if we disconnect those pieces, then they've got to look at their whole system. So then, okay, so if jail goes off to Mottman or whatever we want, the ARC or Correctional Center, what happens with their court and their probation, all that? Can that be folded into this vision somehow, or do they need to do something else? Because they've got limited dollars to try to solve systems-wide issues. That's one thing. Another thing is, just ongoing management and policy alignment. Olympia's jail has some different policies, like they have a transgender policy, they gave an example, that Thurston County doesn't have. They'd want to make sure that there's some oversight, some collaboration, and interlocal agreement that would get the policies in alignment so that both sides are comfortable with the jail policies. There was discussion about the program. Could programming within a unified jail be managed by separate jurisdictions? So those are all the kind of ironing of details that we try to work through. And then, of course, the big one is the capital expenditure and dollars and who would be contributing and what that would mean.
Did they give other examples of policy discrepancies between Olympia policy and county?
Two examples, transgender and ICE cooperation. ICE cooperation issues, which were different before the Keep Washington Working Act, have kind of been ironed out now by Keep Washington Working. But let's say a new governor came in and repealed, or new legislature repealed Keep Washington Working, there might be some future potential for divergence, because there was a little, not a big gap, but there was a small gap prior to Keep Washington Working between the way Olympia did things and the way our county jail did things.
So I'll get to you, Gary. I'm guessing you have a question or comment. Without a specific issue, I haven't read the Olympia jail policy in 10, 15 years, probably 10 years, and it was before these policies you brought up. I just would want to be sure that, are we just accepting all of theirs, or are they accepting some that we have that they don't incorporate already? I mean, it's got to be.
Sure, there'd have to be a conversation with that.
Yeah.
In light of your conversation, carrying on because we earlier had a discussion, we didn't know if we ought to even move forward with our add-on to the jail.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple things have changed now. They're not doing work release now.
Right.
I think that might open up some additional bed space to be utilized. My preference would be that we put this jail expansion on hold right now until we see what kind of a regional concept that we could come up with that would benefit all parties concerned, and including not only the jurisdictions and their activities, but the taxpayers would come out as a beneficiary if we figure this all out. So I'm still gonna be pushing as
The
we.
planning phase that we authorized, or the
Yes,
design,
that whole thing, I think we need to put a freeze on that until we get to the bottom of this. I mean, like, we're always working with unknowns, it seems like. I couldn't tell you how many are in the juvenile center. We still have 80 empty beds over there though. And I think that is a big mistake to ask the taxpayers to fund 40 more beds over here for 25 million or whatever it is when we got 80 beds over there. Now, I realize there's a lot of logistic issues that we need to change, but I think times are a-changing and we better adapt to that, because things are gonna get tight here and we're gonna have to be innovative to solve the community's problems. So I'm opting for a slowdown, a stop, something on what we're doing over at that adult jail facility. I've never been in favor of that thing, never been in favor of the location. But I do think that the courts and public defense and everybody concerned is really paying attention now. And we might be able to make this the new norm, if you will, and not have to do all this crazy expenditure.
I'd like to throw another thing, as you kind of coming back to your idea of the juvenile facility, I'm gonna come back to one of my things that got shot down, which was the proposal to take one of the existing pods and remodel it into individual cells. I mean, the problem with the jail is it only has half of the kinds of cells it needs, but that could be fixed, and there was a proposal in our memo of choices. I can't remember exactly why that got shot down, but one of the.
Operationally, Chief Toma had issues with that.
Because I think it's because the different kinds of like with female and different kinds of population, it would, It would,
It would have been difficult during that construction.
but I just would like to see the jail we have not necessarily be bigger, but have the right structure. Because we've reduced, I mean, a lot of things are changing and we may rethink our jail population, but what's never gonna change from my perspective is if we don't have any isolation cells, we don't have any isolation cells. I know we have a few, but if we don't have enough, we don't have enough, and that's not gonna change. No matter how much we reduce that jail population, we're still gonna have mentally ill people and murder suspects and high-risk people. And so we've gotta solve that one problem at a minimum for the Disability Rights Washington issue and all that. But like, as you point out, there's different ways to go about that.
And now with, we'll probably expand the electronic home monitoring to a degree, eliminating, I've never been in favor of the whole work release concept because you send them out in the community for 12 hours and then bring them back. I mean, if they're good enough to go out for 12 hours and might do something stupid, what's to keep them from doing that? So I think that's a good move, that we do away with that. That frees up additional space over there that we might be able to utilize while we're doing a modification that you're talking about. I think that we need to bring the chief and the sheriff in, Chief Toma and the sheriff, and have a discussion on that to see what would be feasible to move forward with doing something besides spending, how many millions are you talking about for that
Talking
expansion?
about 25.
25, instead of spending that 25 million.
Could the work release be reconfigured into a flex unit? I mean, to have individual cells,
Oh, I think it's possible that we could do that.
high risk.
But we need to have those professionals come in and let us know.
That's kind of what the question you're asking.
I'm
That has
lined
been
up with you.
examined in the past. I can certainly bring to you the analysis.
But now things have changed from the past, and we are in the new normal. The new normal is we're not doing work release, for an example. Okay, that frees up that whole area for a different utilization than what it was used for in the past that conflicted with our ability to make the changes that you're suggesting.
You have something to add? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I appreciate the board having this conversation as things change, continue the conversation. I do appreciate that. But some of the ideas were revisited in a couple of occasions. Remodel of the juvenile facility, remodel of one of the pods. The work release was included as part of that. And the board concluded that we needed, the prior direction that we needed to have that additional single cell capacity. And also the board directed to design a shell. They could be used for future expansion. How that ties to the regional jail, from my humble perspective, we will need capacity no matter what at the jail. So the flex unit needs to be part of that. Really the question is whether the shell can be used for a regional jail. I guess that's how I see at this point the issue related to the regional jail, and perhaps I call the obligation and the risk that we have related to not doing anything at this point.
Well, I'm not saying don't do anything, I'm saying let's put it on hold until we figure something out. Olympia might be able to, maybe they're interested in partnering up with us for that shell, if you will. And maybe that could be a separate location run separately. I don't know, and I guess we won't know until we hash all that out. So I just don't think we ought to be moving forward on it right now. And whatever that delay is, I don't have an answer for it, but I think staff can get back to us.
Can I ask this question? I look at Robin, because you've kind of chimed in when this, so I assume that you're involved in the design. You have some,
That's my staff.
yeah, your staff. So,
Yes.
how much money are we spending and what's the timeline that they're working under to do this design of the 40 unit flex unit plus shell for 118
So we just entered into the design contract and it is a little over $1 million to do the design work. And I've asked, Chris Helmer is taking this week off on personal leave. But I asked him, how soon will we have the design work done for the board to be able to make the next decisions? I don't have an answer on that yet. But we had just at the end of last week, he sent me the design contract to sign.
I mean, is 6 months like what,
I should
ballpark of
hope
what?
it's sooner than that.
Okay,
My
so
hope
even
is that
faster than
it's
that.
sooner than that.
Can you, either of you take us back to our most recent correspondence with DRW as to what the county's move was going to be, that we took their concerns seriously and what we're doing and a timeframe if they had that in the letter?
The last correspondence that take us back probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The last one. And as you may recall, that letter had a lot of issues related to, first of all, providing adequate treatment to individuals, adequate plans. For the most part, we addressed those in terms of the True Block grant. And that is another issue that might be coming up here in the next year or so, because that grant will be exhausted. Then what is it that we need to do to continue the services to the inmates? So that was the key component. The other key component of their concerns is housing individuals in places that it shouldn't be. And in the commitment of the board at that time was to add capacity in the jail through the flex unit, to add those individual cells, because right now that is the pinch point.
Right.
At the jail, because we don't have enough individual cells. We have capacity in the dorms, but those I believe it's maybe 70%, or if not 80% of the jail population is considered medium to high risk, which those require individual incarceration. So, and that was the basis in which the board made a commitment to that. And at some point, DRW said, thank you, as long as you keep moving forward, they're idling on that perception, so.
Now, that was my recollection too, that once we laid out our plans to DRW, these are my words, not theirs, that they said, okay, we're sufficiently satisfied that you're taking this seriously and going to do something. And DRW, that's just an entity, but those individuals are dealing with the same COVID-19 issues that we are, because you can't escape it. But I also can't see anybody losing the opportunity to exploit a crisis. And if we put this off, and I'm not opposed to putting it off, I'm just saying something we need to consider, that if we put it off, and it's obvious and out in the open, we're putting this thing out, or putting it off, whether that exposes us to further, not liability, but pressure or threat of a lawsuit of some sort. So we have to consider that. We went from the individual cells to the pod, it was the newest, greatest thing, and we're finding out, oh, we need individual cells. Now we're going back again, back to the future. And it's costly, it's a waste of money and time. Gary.
Okay, the key to what you're saying though, is at that time. And at that time no longer exists. We're in a new reality. And I truly feel that it doesn't have to be bricks and mortar. We can show, if you're worried about the litigation end of it, that we have made leaps and bounds improvements just through our cooperation with the whole criminal justice component, the prosecutor, the judicial end, the public defense, the sheriff, running the jail. I don't know what our population is today, I didn't look at it, but it's way.
195.
Yeah, I mean, it's, so I'm not going along with that we're not making headway. We are making headway. We might not be making headway in bricks and mortar,
I didn't hear anybody say we're not making headway.
well, I'm referring to the way it used to be, as long as we were moving ahead. That was what they said. As long as we were moving ahead to solve the problem. I'm contending it doesn't mean bricks and mortar. We're moving ahead. We've solved a lot of those overpopulation issues that they were concerned about. So I don't feel bad at all about putting a stop on this, because I don't think it's all about bricks and mortar. We've got a new philosophy on how corrections is gonna be run in the future. So, you're gonna win.
I'm with you, Commissioner.
Anyway, I think we need to take that into consideration as
I'm
we
with
debate
you.
this, so
I'm
let's
with you.
put a stop to it for right now until we find out how can Olympia play into this, how can Lacey play it? A regional concept that will not cost the taxpayers and an arm and a leg. I mean, I don't wanna move forward based on the past. I wanna move forward based on the future.
Yeah. That's right.
So I would ask the board to give direction that this thing be put on a slow track of some type or another.
Side spur?
Well, whatever it takes. And I'd make a motion to that if it took that.
I'm leaning,
Not a motion, just thumbs up direction.
Okay,
well,
well,
I'm,
we can't see, can't hear thumbs
I'm
up.
leaning your direction, but you, a few minutes ago, you proposed bringing Sheriff and Chief Toma in here for discussion.
Huh?
And I might prefer to have that discussion before
Okay.
taking a big step. I'm leaning your direction, but I know that there's a second side to this story
Sure.
that
Sure.
you might wanna have that conversation.
I want all those
Yeah.
facts as well. But in the meantime, I don't want a contract going out for $20 million, that's all.
We're nowhere close to that. We just inked the contract for the design.
Well, but
Does that mean we're bound then? Or
Um,
can we pull out of it?
if
delay
you
it?
pull funding, I will look at the, clause for ending the contract, but
well, I'm not saying even end it, I'm
Well, let's
saying
talk to you.
delay it.
Professionals to see what the best
Yeah.
choices are. Yeah, see what the best advice is.
So, but we had agreed that we would not take the next step without bringing the design to you, so. I am not about to sign a $20 or $25 million
No, but even $1 million
Yeah.
contract, I don't wanna go $1 million either until we have some of these discussions.
So we'll get those guys in, with the two professionals and the
So,
sheriff.
what will be the subject, so they're prepared to have a conversation with the board, to revisit the decisions related to the flex unit?
Get their best advice under the current circumstances, how the best way is to move forward. Watching that all the concerns we just shared.
Between shutting down work release, expanding home monitoring, budget issues related to COVID-19 response. And we have a lot of things that have changed since the decision was made. And we'd like to revisit the discussion in light of the new realities that Commissioner Edwards laid out very succinctly.
And just a robust decision or discussion, not one convince us why we should move forward or come up with a better idea and why not to, but it's an all-involved discussion on what's the best laid plans with mice and men at this point in time.
Because they were both on the call with Olympia. They heard, there's no promises, there's nothing committed, but I mean, they heard what I heard about what that potentiality looks like. So they, that may color their thoughts about what the future holds. I don't know.
Why spend that money, 20+ million now, if we can do something regionally? I mean, have that discussion with them here in the room.
Right, I mean, maybe ideally maybe not ideally, but one possible is we build the 118 bed flex unit that the sheriff wanted from the beginning with Olympia's help and the understanding that we're gonna have Tumwater and Lacey by contract, and then we're doing something that brings more value to the community.
Sure.
Does,
I'll set something up.
does Olympia have a detention sales tax? I know they have a public safety tax, but I don't know if that goes to the jail. Do they have a detention?
I would have to look, I think that's a countywide tax.
Thought they had something, they may have something
They
specific
have
to jail.
a public safety tax, but I don't think they have a detention sales tax. I will look that up. I'll look.
They might be
to see
bringing
if I
some
can
revenue
find
stream
that.
with them. That can be diverted to this.
They would bring whatever revenue stream they're currently spending on their
Okay.
operating their own jail
Okay.
for operating costs.
Don't incent,
I don't know what
waste a lot
that
of
is.
time on that.
I should have it here.
That's down the road still. Was that your board and committee? That was your.
That was my
That was his
item.
report.
Way to go.
Well, you took a long time.
Golly. Thank you, Gary. Gary, do you have something to report on?
No, that, boards and commissions, that was the only one
Oh, that
that
was
we
it?
took that action at the
Okay.
communications center.
I'll jump into a few of them here. Coming up tomorrow is I forget how many hours it is, but it's a LoSAC policy review. It's about 70 or 80 pages of policy review on a conference call. It's hard enough to do when you're face-to-face with people, but to do it on the phone is gonna be brutal. I had a conversation with US Fish and Wildlife. There was 12 of us on the Zoom or webinar, or whatever it was, including CPED staff and Brad Thompson and from the local US Fish and Billy Dove. Now, the new Department of Interior Secretary Shipwith,
She's not the secretary for the
What is she?
Department of Interior.
Director?
She's the director over US Fish and Wildlife.
US Fish, that's it, thank you, and Skipwith, isn't it Skipwith?
Skip with.
And so she has an appointee, and the appointee's name is Billy Dove, who reports directly to the director. And so he was on this conference call. So this elevated, this whole HCP in Thurston, little Thurston County, has elevated itself to Washington DC, and they've got eyeballs on it. It's of that importance, it's been elevated. So this conference call was a couple hours long. I only did 30 minutes, as did Brad. We kind of set the tone, I don't know if Billy stayed. We just set the tone for staff. A little more than a cheerleading speech. It was supposed, hey, we appreciate the collaboration, we're working well. Yeah, okay, get it done, and blah, blah, blah. But I took a harder tone and actually threw down the gauntlet and said, I'm giving you a bold and audacious deadline. This will be done by June 30th. And by that I mean, I said, we're done playing this roundabout, we're in a roundabout loop, and we come up and bump your tailgate, you come around and rear end us, and, you know, risk of collision. And you bump into us, and we just keep chasing our tails around the roundabout. And this is not getting us anywhere. This is well over 5 years, and this is our third draft policy. Let's get it done. It's been in the solicitor's hands for a couple months now. Let's get this done. Let's work a parallel path, not a roundabout, and get to the finish line. And I said, I'm putting down June 30th as a deadline. And that really took Brad by surprise. Hi, Brad, if you're watching. And he said, yeah, it is bold and audacious, but let's work towards that end. It has been lengthy, but it has been, of course, to protect the county, to protect our citizens, to protect the federal government, to protect the species, all the right reasons. So after that, but I left, and I also included, though, in my little preparatory presentation was, we're not gonna go back and start revisiting all the nuances of the HCP plan. We've done that. You've accepted all these things, now we're here, and whatever comes forward, we're not going back to redo stuff we've already TA'd on, right? Tentatively agreed to. We're gonna move on from here and get this thing done. So I had a little follow-up conversation with Josh Cummings yesterday, and he stayed on the call, and he said he thought it went real well, and they kind of got the message, and but he reiterated with, I think with Brad, he said, that, Commissioner Hutchings said a bold and audacious June 30th, and Josh said, I really don't think that's bold and audacious. It's doable, let's get it done, let's get it finished, let's move on, get this thing sorted out. So I haven't had a chance to talk with Jennifer yet to see what she and Chris and everybody else that was involved in the call had to say. But like I said, there was 12 faces on the screen, so it's kind of interesting. Yes? Was
Someone from, is it Legacy Lands that Josh's group has been meeting with
Is that
periodically?
IEA or?
It has to do with Fort Lewis.
I don't believe
All
they
the
were
players, were they involved?
There was somebody there with, that had IEA and EIA, IAE, something like that, 3 letters. And she explained who she was, but it just went through one ear. And I don't mean disrespect to her. I just didn't recall what the acronym meant, where she worked for.
You're talking about the Sentinel lands, right?
Sentinel Lands,
Oh,
yeah,
Sentinel.
Sentinel Lands, that's what.
I don't think so. So that was that discussion. We had a conference with the mayors, and as a result of last week, and as a result of that, or the week before, and we were talking about doing the public service announcements for the COVID response, to get the word out to the public. Hey, take this stuff seriously. And as I read in the Olympian, not my word, the Olympian editorial board called people that aren't taking this seriously COVIDiots. And I thought, wow, that's bold and audacious, because they're not taking it seriously. And it's not gonna do anything but further spread the disease. So I did a series of about 6, 7, or 8 PSAs yesterday, and I don't know when they're gonna be aired, or where they're gonna be aired, but asking people, please take it seriously. And I believe the cities are doing the same thing, the mayors. Did you?
Yeah, that is the intent, and also waiting on your email is a draft letter to the editor. And we would like to have your perspective, comments by the end of today. And that letter to the editor is gonna be signed by, obviously, you and the mayors.
So I read that.
So if you have any comments, please let us know.
So that was something, a letter to the editor, but give it a good, if you haven't yet, give it a
I
good
took a
read.
look.
I think I've already read that.
I think I gave it a thumbs up.
It came through.
But Megan sent that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've already read that. I didn't see anything else.
I didn't either, I just wanted to be sure you saw it. So we all said that was okay. I gave my response to Megan, I believe. But we also sent a letter along with the mayor of Olympia to Salvation Army. Did we have a separate letter, or was it with all just me and Cheryl, or was it all of the signatures? I'm trying to remember. Asking Mark Stearns, Captain Stearns.
2 different letters.
To increase the beds. Okay, so we signed one, increase the bed size. So we're working in conjunction with that. And there's a mayor's forum phone call tomorrow as well, by video or by phone, to find out what issues are current and how we're addressing things in our own jurisdictions.
But it's also 1:30 meeting,
Tomorrow?
so it's 2 meetings tomorrow. Is the mayor's forum that you discussed, which is from 12 to 1:30. And the regular weekly COVID-19 meeting that you have been having with mayors is also starting at 1:30. So on the mayor's forum, only Commissioner Hutchins has been asked, because only elected officials. On the mayor's forum is the administrators.
Okay,
On the 1:30, I'm sorry.
at the 1:30, okay. So, well, go to meeting, okay, got that, they're both on here. And that's all I have to report, let me see. That's all I have to report.
See, we didn't need until.
Oh, no, we didn't. Hey, we haven't got into commissioners' items
We're
yet.
getting into commissioner's item
Yeah.
next. Do
I was just gonna see your.
I'll keep you busy.
you have a commissioner item?
I don't have a commissioner item. I mean, the only other thing I had for boards and stuff was the Chehalis Basin stuff, if you're curious about it. The EIS came out for the dam project. And it raised a whole bunch of significant impacts. The confusing piece, I just had a conference call with the guy who's kind of Jim Kramer, who administers the Chehalis Basin Board and the strategy development. And what he explained is that what's confusing things is, for the first time, I guess, ecology included climate change impact, because this is looking over like 100 years, 75, 80 years plus. And they included climate change impact, but it's all kind of conflated in the EIS, so it's hard to separate out what the dam is causing versus what climate change would cause anyway without the dam. So trying to pull apart the impacts is something that they're trying to educate the public as to the fact that if you do nothing, so if you're thinking about fish, for example, if you do nothing, it's gonna continue to decline because of climate change impacts. So if you build the dam, it's gonna continue to decline, and maybe more, because the dam has some damaging aspects to habitat and temperature. The question is, the Chehalis Basin strategy has always been, not always, but it's two-pronged. They have to simultaneously work on flood control and aquatic species restoration. So the question is, can you put a package together that includes a dam, but includes so much habitat and aquatic species restoration that it actually beats the do nothing, just climate change only impact. So that you actually, by doing this whole package of stuff, improve fish, but also get the flooding value of the flood retention facility. That's the argument behind the shale-based strategy. It's kind of dependent on how well you can mitigate the dam impacts, but then now they're trying to figure out, well, what are the dam impacts that are separate from climate change? So what I understand is that there are a lot of habitat pieces that can probably be mitigated. Temperature is the really challenging part. There's gonna be a big temperature increase from the dam. And they're coming up, so it goes back to the project proponent is the Lewis County Flood Control District. They've got consultants that are now gonna be preparing, and I've got Thomasina actually listening to a presentation this morning about what ways they would go about mitigating for the dam's effects. The most challenging one is gonna be temperature. And they've got some ideas about taking groundwater recharge in creating little side pockets along the river of colder water where the fish could use that to hang out in the places that it needs to hang out. And it's kind of innovative and creative and hasn't quite been done, and whether or not it'll, satisfy environmentalists and other community members that's a reasonable approach is a big question mark. But you might have heard about a big bill that was discussed in the legislature to try to fund some work, and it got watered down to the point, but what it got watered down to is that the Chehalis Basin Board must make recommendations to the legislature in January on what should go forward. So this is gonna be a furious year of debate about the dam project, the habitat projects, how they can mitigate, what climate change is doing, and on top of all that, and can a package be put together that would actually advance the salmon populations and control flooding.
And that'll be the biggest thing, is controlling the flooding. Then the rest are kind of good byproducts of the plans. Because you say there's two paths, but no matter which path.
Not paths, there's dual goals.
Dual goals.
They have to be serving both goals. That's been agreed upon. At the beginning, it was, Lewis County flood control versus environmentalists and salmon. And the way they came together to work on a path forward was to say, we have mutually important goals. And whatever we advance has to address and advance both of our sets of goals. If this dam cannot be mitigated in a way that fish can't move forward, then by the strategy's own design, it fails. It cannot go forward.
Wow.
So they're trying to put together this, so it's very interesting, and they're actually, so.
Go ahead.
We contributed 14% to recently budgetarily.
That was a river gauge
Yeah.
warning system.
Right. So they're kind of assessing our involvement, I guess, is somehow, you could equate that to some type of an assessment of our involvement. I'm just wondering, are we full members on that board, or we only have a 14% vote, or?
Thurston County
Because we got Black Lake and the Black River and all that goes in there too.
Thurston County has no role on the Chehalis Basin Board. I tried to lobby to get.
Why?
Because at some point, the governor's work group got converted into the Chehalis Basin Board. Karen Valenzuela, who had my seat, was a member of the governor's work group.
Okay.
And when that got converted into the Chehalis Basin Board, they reconfigured how the seats were selected, and Thurston County was just squeezed out. So it's
Still paying in.
well, we're not paying Chehalis Basin Board. There's all sorts of different entities. We do have a seat.
Not the right way.
We do have a seat on the flood authority, and
Okay, all right.
And is that the portion that, I think we have more square miles of drainage into the Chehalis River than anybody else, don't we?
I don't know the answer to that. We have a lot.
We have a lot,
It's like 25% of Thurston County is in the Chehalis River Basin,
Yeah,
however
it's
many miles that
A
is.
big chunk, so I question how come we were squeezed out in that regard.
Well, I question that too. So Chehalis, the flood authority gets to pick 3 members of the 7 votes on the Chehalis Basin Board that will make these recommendations. The flood authority gets to pick 3. It doesn't have to be members of the flood authority, they just get to pick 3. One seat was up and I put my name in the hat.
And you got that?
I did not get that. I didn't know, the guy who was already there basically got reappointed.
Okay, okay.
So the flood authority chooses 3. The 3 are the Lewis County Commissioner that represents Lewis County and the Flood Authority, the Grays Harbor Commissioner that represents Grays Harbor and the Flood Authority, and an agricultural person from Grays Harbor County. When his seat came up and I said, you know, Thurston County should have been on this board to begin with, makes obvious sense, you've got the other 2 commissioners, you know, I think that I should be this person.
This is just that they're squeezing Thurston County out of the policy-making group.
Yeah.
And yet they include Thurston County to make sure that we cover 14% of the.
Well, that's kind of a different thing, so just to put that in
You know, but
perspective.
still,
Yeah, it's a recognition that we're part of this, we have the rivers. So if you think about my two paths, put them vertically as lists of things that could help salmon, lists of things that could stop flooding. The big daddy on the flooding is obviously the dam, but there's all kinds of little things below that. And what the flood authority does is kind of manage all those littler projects that help control flooding, short of the big dam project that's part of the big Chehalis Basin strategy. So the flood authority and Thurston County does sit on that. I go to those meetings, and town of Bucota has a seat because they're the only one that they're in the. So that we have Thurston County basically has 2 seats. So I got 2 votes at the to be put on the Chehalis Basin Board. And Thurston County.
Thurston.
I voted for myself. Cindy Wilson was the alternate for Bucota, and she voted for me.
Did,
It's 10-2.
Did power production come into that dam discussion at all? Electrical power? Not even a bit, huh?
It's not designed.
I mean, I just hate to see that flow of that water go to waste, basically.
So it's not, so what this dam will do is, it'll have a gate that comes down, it'll only activate
During seasonal issues.
during
Yeah.
these, when the water rises to a certain point. They estimate, so they try to tell you that it'll only, or if you look at the last 30 years, it would activate only or look at the last 100 years, it would only activate about every 7 years. There would be something significant enough. Now, the data that they show actually shows it would be about every 4 years.
It might even be more if this.
Yeah, and things are gonna get worse, so you're looking at something that's gonna activate probably every 3 years. Otherwise, it's gonna flow freely under the dam,
I guess my other piece would be,
somewhat freely, mostly.
I know George Walters from the Nisqually tribe wrote an article here recently having to do with the flooding down in the Nisqually Valley. And really, the goal, if you really wanted to get it right, would be to buy out those individuals that are building or rebuilding in those floodplains.
That's on that list of flood thing, and so the question, environmentalists will say, we should be doing those things. We do not need to spend $1 billion on a dam. We can use land use changes, we can do habitat restoration projects, which actually increase floodplain utilization design, will slow the water. And that would be a better approach. And so that's gonna be the argument that's being debated. Some of the people in Lewis and Grays Harbor are just, they're really passionate about needing a dam. But
I'm neither for nor against, I don't know enough about it. I'm just saying that there's other speculation, and on the Nisqually situation, that produces power, at least we're getting some benefit, plus some flood control. So,
one consideration about the dam to be unaware of that gives me pause is that it's only, the Chehalis Basin can flood from a variety of directions and places. This dam will do a good job if we get exactly the kind of flood we had in '07. But historically, floods can come from other tributaries and other parts of the river, of which this dam would do nothing.
right,
So, and for that exact event that that we had in '07, it would have reduced the flooding by about 25%. So it's still not solving the problem, and it's still not, and it's only mitigating it from one kind of flood event. There'd be other flood events that would still cause flood damage and screw up I-5 and all that. And then you've got the argument that, you know, you could be doing these other things, buying people out, elevating homes. There's 13, I've got the numbers actually. There's 1,300 protected structures, and it's about another 1,700 that would have to be, that are at risk, that would have to be dealt with.
But if there's only a dam every 3 or 4 years, you can't use that for power on a regular basis.
No, I'm saying it's not designed to be for-
No, I just wondered if it was gonna be utilized for power. I'm not saying, I'm not advocating.
Because I don't know much about, no, I know.
No.
I don't know much about it either.
They say this is the, I mean, on the other side, the design of this dam is innovative and doesn't really have a direct analog anywhere. I mean, there are elements of it, but this exact design, the dam design has not been built. And they're calling it the most fish-friendly dam ever built, which.
So it'd be passed through most of the time.
It'd be passed through most of the
And
time.
I didn't get why then it would be detrimental to water temperature if the water continues to flow through there except during a particular flood stage. That didn't equate with me.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not gonna be able to describe that, but
Is that the upstream effect? Because
everybody's
you-
acknowledging a major temperature
Because
problem.
you hold the
so I
water
don't-
behind the dam, and that might be probably the recent temperatures they're talking about. The upstream.
I think you have to cut, to make the dam and deal with it and move the fish around and stuff, you have to cut a lot of trees away from the banks, which that's like death for
Don't do that to
extreme
fish.
temperature. Yeah,
Well,
so,
fish need that.
I'm not sure all the aspects of that, but.
So related to environmental impacts, I don't know if you had the chance to see some of the reports early in the week. Because the world is a standstill, right? And the air quality in China
Yeah.
has improved so much. The ozone hole that we have in
Yeah.
north has been reduced significantly
I saw
because
that.
of
Did not see that, no.
because of the you know, gas
Shut
emissions
down.
have been reduced greatly. So that was, you know, a good correlation to our actions
What is
does
proof?
impact to climate change.
Good grief. Do you have a commissioner item?
No, other than I'd like to, I have commissioner
I have-
items.
I have-
Well, I have a whole bunch of commissioner items.
Let me bring one up real quick.
Oh,
because
okay.
Now we're running out of time. And this is a current topic.
Okay.
The transfer station, the self-haul, issue,
Yes.
is that still going to go ahead and reopen on the 8th or 9th of April?
I'm working with staff, hopefully we can open Saturday and Sunday until give us time to revamp for next week.
This Saturday, Sunday?
We're looking for that option, even as we speak.
Okay, because I know that would alleviate a lot of the current issues for folks out there, not only just individual folks on property, their own property, but for the commercial, residential.
And I'm glad you brought this up.
Property over.
If we open this Saturday and Sunday, it will be only the Hawkesbury.
Right,
We will not be able to open the satellite locations.
and I get that, but it's a huge relief to a lot of these folks. Okay.
I
Thank you.
guess,
It's a huge relief for all the emails that I received.
Yeah.
I would prefer, if we can't open the satellite locations, that we open up the Hawks Prairie facility more than Saturday and Sunday.
We're looking into those options, Commissioner, because what we're facing right now, I mentioned to you 14 individuals, 10 are.
I know.
4 individuals. If we open Saturday and Sunday, those individuals will be working 17 days in a row.
Well, I don't know how to, I'm not gonna try and micromanage how you assign your staff, but there must be other people that work for Public Works or
We are-
something that we can fill in.
We are looking for all the options, Commissioner.
That's work in progress.
But I cannot put myself in the situation to say, yes, we're gonna open more than 2 days this weekend. I can't.
You want me to come in and I'll direct traffic? I mean that, I would come
You said
in,
you don't wanna
but I'm not
micromanage.
gonna collect money. But I would run people in, because I'm not buying this business about we don't have enough staff to make sure that this doesn't get dumped, that doesn't get dumped, collect money.
I'm sorry,
all
but with all due respect,
Yeah.
there is the staff that works in the county. There's the staff that we put in at risk as stated by the governor.
Well,
So
I think we're
with
at
all due
risk.
respect,
What I'm hearing is you don't trust the county
With
manager.
with all due respect, Commissioner, those are your employees as well that need your
Yeah.
respect.
And 70% of those employees are in that protected,
We do.
high-risk
I'm sorry,
population.
but I feel that somebody needs to stick up for the employees
Yep.
who are not uniformed.
I agree, I have no problem with that, but what I'm trying to get away from is charging everybody coming in, expedite the process, we're in new times, let them come in and dump. I know you're gonna say, well, that's some kind of gifting, I'm saying allow anybody in the community to come in and dump. That's not gifting if you're allowing anybody to come in. And so I think we can make changes to the way we're doing business to get around this problem. I know it's not the biggest problem we're gonna deal with, but close the satellite ones, assign people there, reassign, and I don't care if you charge or not. I just don't care that we violate some. I don't mind going to court 5 years from now and say, well, I did this, if you wanna call it gifting, I did it, I guess, because I felt there was an urgent need for public welfare to do it. So that's, I'm not questioning you, I'm pushing.
Yes, you are questioning.
Well, I'm
Commissioner.
pushing
Yeah.
to make sure
Yeah.
that we make exceptions to the rules to get the job done for the public.
And that's what we're doing, that's why here what we're doing. We did, for staffing issues and protection, closed the local, Rochester and Rainier, and got some pushback, which makes sense. And now we're working with 70% of that population at the work, of the employees are a high-risk population. I've got to be sensitive to that, we're ordered to be sensitive to that. And I do want to advocate as well for the non-uniformed employees. And I'm really glad that Jennifer, you and Jennifer, whomever, their team are working on something to open it up on Saturday and Sunday. But I validate you for the work you're doing as well, Romero, as a county manager. And I'm not going to call into question, I don't believe what you're telling me is not true. Because I'm not going to say that. I do believe what you're saying is the best knowledge you have today to get it done and get it right for the citizens. And you're giving us the best information you have. Yes.
I have to say I differ with it, and the reason I do is because I don't think our staff need to be put in that threatening situation. They're outside over there. They can stay 6 feet away. They're not up there unloading garbage, they're just directing somebody to go dump here or go dump there. I don't understand that the threat is that bad for a layman person that might not even know what they're doing, but just give them new direction. This is what you need to do, not transferring even any money. I'm willing to make those exceptions to keep the process going. I don't wanna see garbage building up around the county. So that's why I'm so adamant about this.
What is it that you're trying to push for it to be open every day or versus limited days?
Well,
Different-
more than just the 2 days,
Okay.
more than just the 2
Commissioner, we're
days.
gonna be opening on April 9th. That was the plan.
Which is Thursday.
Yeah, aren't they still gonna be out in the open? Are you trying to open up, I guess, and follow all the rules that are in place? We're dealing with past rules.
I am
that are
not in the
place.
position to break any rules, Commissioner.
I am, I don't care, I am willing to.
You are one vote.
Well, I'll give you direction that you can break certain rules if you
No,
need to.
I don't take direction from our commissioner.
You were so concerned, now that this is criticism personally, but you're on other issues, you're concerned about opening the liability of the county. I don't want to get sued, let's get legal advice. But now you're saying the complete opposite. I'll get
Well,
sued, I'll go to court, I'll go.
I'm not worried about it
Make the
because,
decision, I'll break the rules, I'm asking you to break the rules. I don't get how those two align.
well, I do because I'm recognizing the emergent situation that we're living in today. We're living in a new reality. All those rules were put in place way back when we lived a different lifestyle. We've
then
all had adjustments.
Agree to give them Squally fiber optics, so they can get their emergency operations center
That's
communicating.
All I'm asking for is a sentence to be put in there. That's all I'm asking for.
And you're asking for them
And
to
it's
accept it.
very simple, and the bureaucratic process always takes forever to do it. I'm not in favor of the bureaucratic process. I'd have one of those attorneys march over here from the prosecutor's office, write a sentence in, we could sign it and send it on our way. that would be just fine with me. And I'm willing to come in at midnight or Sunday. I'll work any hours it takes to conduct the county's business. So when I say we can fudge a little bit here, it's no different than when you and I were policemen. The speed limit might have been 50. We didn't arrest everybody that was going 52. And that's what I'm saying. Make common sense exceptions to the way we're doing business. And the way we're doing business is not going to ever be the way we always did business in the past. Times are changing. Let's be bold and step forward and make those changes. Allow citizens to benefit. That's all I'm asking for.
And I'm not opposed to being bold and audacious, but I can't break the law. If the law says you will not, I'm not gonna say, yeah, but this is a different time. I gotta adhere to the law. And I'm definitely not gonna ask staff, any of our staff, to break the law. I might be in a position to suggest it, but I won't do that.
Well, then let's suggest to the county manager that they just bring somebody in and don't collect the money. Let them dump if that's what the worry is.
That's the legality, though.
And they're not gonna be exposed anymore.
That's the legality.
Well, take a picture of them, send them a bill, see if they pay. I don't care. There's a lot of different ways we can do business besides the way we've always done business.
Well, that's a universal. There's always
I
been a
mean,
way.
We're in a situation now, we've got this communist virus that's taken its toll on
Do you have
us.
anything sensible to say?
Well, I'm not politically correct, I make no bones about it. Where did it come from? It came out of a communist country because the communist countries don't allow free speech to pass on. What happened to the doctor that originally found this? He ended up dead. He was not allowed to let us know that there was a problem. Now it's a worldwide problem because we had a communist situation that held the information too close to their chest. I'm not mad at the Chinese people. Those people are under the thumb of a communist government. And we gotta quit being politically correct and doing everything the way we always did it. We just need to start opening up and telling it the way it is and make changes that need to be changed.
Do you have anything for this topic? Any feedback for this transportation topic?
I don't.
Okay.
I'd like to
I can tell we're out of time.
I'd like to see it get opened, and I appreciate the efforts that Ramiro and Jennifer are doing to work, and I would encourage them to be as aggressive as is safe to get as many hours as we can out of the problem that we have, and I know they're doing that, so I just defer to their.
And I thank you for standing up for ununiformed personnel as well, all of our staff, because they're part of our 1,100 employees. And I've never, ever thought you've brought me any bad information or questioned your judgment. So thank you, Ramiro, for what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Now,
You have a hard job.
we're adjourned. As rhetoric gets a little bit prickly, and issues get hot, and everybody's getting a little frustrated, we still move on. So we'll be back here at 1 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
1 o'clock.
And Judge